John, the Manchester United Foundation, just to kick things off, how does your foundation link with your wider club's strategy?
Morning, everyone. Fantastic, Sam, Andy, Jamie. Makes you feel very proud to feel a part of that. And, you know, the work that we all do is so needed. So many congratulations. In terms of fitting with the overall strategy, we enjoy a really good relationship with the club. And we have done for a long time. You know, I've been around the club a long time, so I do know the comings and the goings and what happens and whatever. But I would have to say that during COVID, those relationships got stronger. It was a time when, you know, it was initiated that, you know, if we're not playing football, then we need to be out there serving the community. And that's where sort of the foundation stepped forward and the club stepped back a little bit. So, you know, the acceleration of relationships within club actually was better during COVID, because I'm probably speaking for all the foundations that are on the line. When the club needs the foundation, we're the best thing since sliced bread. When they don't need us, we're a real pain in the arse.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. I love that. And you can see all the great work. I was on a call, and Juan Mata was on the call, and he mentioned about the foundation work and how he was doing sometimes the players. So no, I totally get that. And Sara, from your point of view, you have maybe gone through the Burnley club in terms of new ownership. So how does your work, your foundation, link in with the wider club and the club strategy as well?
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me, and I hope you've all had a good morning. And I echo John's sentiments. I think the work that football foundations do across all the leagues, not just the Premier League, is outstanding. And I think the pandemic has really shone the light, quite rightly, on everything that we do. In terms of your question, yes, we've had quite a year at Burnley. I've seen the community, not just a pandemic, but we've also had change of ownership. A company called ALK Capital, they are American. They started beginning of January. They are Mormons, and charity is very close to their heart. So in terms of what we do, what we've achieved, what we've still got to achieve, they are fully behind us. I think it took them a while to understand the full breadth of the club's charity. It's taken me 16, 17 months, so I'm not surprised. I think they just needed to understand there's obviously lots of funding streams and different angles to what we do, but they're fully supportive, and you know, so far so good.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. And Tom, I just want to maybe just move the conversation a little bit. If you can give us a synopsis on Foundation 92, but after that, if you could also then just say one program that you have operated during the pandemic that's made a big impact from your point of view. Tom, you're very welcome, by the way. Oh, I think nope, still can't hear you. It was working before. No, it's not. Keep trying. You keep trying away, and we'll come to Jamie. Jamie, same question to you. Can you tell me one program that you've operated during the pandemic that's made for you a real impact?
Yeah, I think Andy alluded to it earlier in his presentation. You know, there was a big focus on the over 55s and that sort of tackling loneliness and social isolation. You know, I think our team here reacted really quickly, and I think because maybe certain other programs weren't able to run, we had a few more hands on deck, if you like, to support the delivery. But you know, just picking up the phone and ringing some participants and checking in and making sure they're okay. You know, dropping off food parcels. garden gate visits to make sure that they're all right, and just getting them out even just to the front gate. I think some of that real, I suppose, old-fashioned community work was just, it was great to see.
Yeah, funny, I seen a bit of research and they were saying that loneliness is one of the biggest areas, and doing that stuff that you've just mentioned is great. Tom, can you hear us okay?
Yes, have you got me loud and clear now?
We have indeed. It's great to see. So you're very, very welcome. If you can give us a quick synopsis on your organisation, but then one programme that you've operated during the pandemic that for you personally has made an impact. You're very welcome.
Fantastic. IT tripping is up there. I'm really looking forward to the days where we'll be all sat around a table again instead of in front of a computer screen. But yes, thank you very much for inviting myself on today. Obviously, echoing Sarah and John's motions there, and absolutely fantastic presentations by everyone. Fantastic to see the reach of foundations across the country. So congratulations to all participants so far. So Foundation 92, we've come at quite a unique position, really, if I'm honest with you, in terms of the charity's growth phase and growth plans. So the charity was formed in November 2018, but operationally really started to deliver high quality, high impact, high value interventions. And really, I'm honest with you, a couple of weeks prior to the actual pandemic starting. So there's quite a planning phase for the charity. Obviously, as the charity sort of strategically fits, we've got a really close working relationship and a really positive partnership with Salford City Football Club. The club and ourselves are really, really closely intertwined. The values of the club, based around obviously the welfare of the people, is the highest law. Quite prominent, obviously, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, but obviously through our founders, the class of 92, we've got quite a wider geographical footprint, and that allows us to invest in the communities that help them grow and develop into the professionals they are today. So our footprint in terms of delivery-wise and our programmes really only started to commence delivery for a short period of time at the start of the pandemic. We did quite a lot of sort of intelligence gathering, needs assessment, creation of really high quality partnerships locally to make sure everything we were doing was adding value, not duplicating. Greater Manchester, but Salford in particular, was a really, really closely knit third sector community. So the charity was really welcomed into the community, and I think the third sector recognised we could add quite significant value in terms of our specialisms and the core programmes that we deliver as a charity. But obviously, as those programmes started to grow and develop, it became quite apparent that our strategy had to, in some ways, be refreshed and revised very, very quickly, based on a two-pronged approach. So the first strand was very much servicing the acute needs of the communities we serve. So through the individuals we'd supported through our mentoring, intervention, transition programmes, youth work, family support intervention programmes, we realised that there's quite a high level of entrenched inequality and disadvantage based within the community that, if it wasn't catered for at the earliest possible stage, could become really long-standing and have quite a significant negative impact on the lifestyles of both individuals and the community alike. So through that needs assessment, we realised very, very quickly that as a charity, we had to respond to the acute needs, because those individuals who we were supporting in a physical manner, pretty much through the government's public health guidelines, we had to really shift our model very, very quickly. So we developed a number of programmes, and our vote was based around two-tiered intervention. Tier one being that acute need, delivery of essential packs, doorstep support services, where we could one-to-one mentoring programmes for those most vulnerable. They continued in line with COVID guidelines. But underpinning all that was a basis of, okay, we're in this situation now that, that's completely unprecedented, that none of us would have ever thought, rewind 5 years would be in this position. How can we help those people build back stronger and become more positive members of society, help them feel more empowered and enabled? So throughout those really acute interventions that cater for the needs there and then, we were very much focused on what is the long-term strategy of the intervention, how we're going to help these people effectively post-pandemic entering back into society as really positive, progressive individuals. So some of the interventions we delivered were very targeted, some were very mass participation. So just for example, a really targeted intervention we developed was with a partner called the Fed. They're a predominantly Jewish charity in Manchester and Salford. Obviously, the football stadium is very much based in the second largest Jewish community, the most prominent Orthodox Jewish community in the United Kingdom. So we recognise that obviously football is that universal hook. We could use that as a mobility tool to reach out to those really, really vulnerable members of the Jewish community, deliver that really essential support program, everything from befriending, the creation of online social group, delivery of kosher essential packs. But moving on into sort of that build back better phase, using sort of, not wanting to steal Andy's strapline there, but it's a very, very prominent strapline. It was a case of, right, how can we create an intervention that helps those people springboard back into society? So it was two-tiered really in terms of the offer that we developed as a charity.
Nice, love it, love it. And Sarah, then from your point of view with Burnley and the community, what sort of program did you do during the pandemic that for you made an impact, in terms of in the local community around where you are?
So I think there was two existing projects. One was our food bank, which we own and we run. And it's been pretty phenomenal. It's very sad to say that we need a food bank in this day and age, and certainly with the demand that we saw, even more so. But that hasn't stopped pretty much since lockdown 1, which was March 2020. And they've been brilliant down there. And we worked with partners in Burnley. And we also helped stock some other food banks within the town as well. So just to give you a sort of sense of the scale, since January 2021, we've fed 11,000 people. Wow. And probably stocked 2 other food banks, at least 100 parcels a week as well. So that's something that we are particularly proud of, but brings its challenges, because of course each food parcel probably equates to about £23 if you were to go down to the supermarket. And I've seen John Marcus Rashford's tweeting again, which is great to see, because I think people think or hope it's subsided, but it hasn't. And that's something that I think has been a real shining light for us, and we've helped when people have really, really needed it most. The second one I would say was mental health. So we had a mental wellbeing work that we do for secondary schools. So obviously we've had education and secondary aged children. They've particularly suffered bad in terms of online learning and self-isolation and not being able to see their friends. So we were there already, but obviously we still continued to help the most needed, even when schools were closed. So that was particularly good. Final one for me was something that came out of the pandemic. So this was a new project for 16 to 25-year-olds that found themselves unemployed, or really just in a not a great place because of everything I've said. Either their education was disrupted, they've lost a loved one through COVID, their mental health has suffered, anxieties. A lot of people haven't left their rooms since March, a lot of social media use. So we got Premier League funding, and it was match funded by Barclays, and we launched that, and we've helped 180 young people so far, of which 20% are now back in employment. So that for me would be the 3. I mean, obviously, it's massive what we do, but in answer to your question, in terms of the pandemic, they're the 3 I'd pick.
Love it, fantastic. What great impact that can be had, especially through the power of football. Fantastic. John, same question to you. What sort of one program or couple of programs that has really made an impact during over the last year and a bit from your point of view?
Very, very similar to everyone, really. We went into the pandemic strong, with strong partnerships, strong local partnerships, understanding of community need, because before pandemic, there'd be, communities weren't in a good space before pandemic. They're in a lot worse space now. So we knew that. Probably like everyone else around the table, had a defining conversation with the chairman about what do we do as a foundation during pandemic. I know, a lot of people were furloughing. We decided not to. We had good healthy reserve. We had a community in need, and we had a fantastic staff. So we decided there and then that we'd invest £1 million into local community. At times, underneath the stadium looked like a Sainsbury's warehouse. We distributed something like £500,000 worth of food. And I think everyone will appreciate around the table that that problem hasn't gone. That problem is still there. It's unbelievable what amount we sent mountains of food out, and it was really well received, and it's not gone away. So it's still an issue. We're still working very close with Fair Share. But then at the same time, and I'll use Jamie's title of his facility, we have to be beacons of light. Yeah. We're football clubs, and as a football club, we have to go into these communities with positivity, because if we were going to ask them their problems against ours, they'd be able to double nap it and snap it and turn it around. So we have to be, leaders. We have to be positive. We have to be solution orientated. We say we work in charity. The communities we work with don't want charity. They want solution. They want a way out. They want to be able to go and get themselves out and be independent of anyone who can help. So doing all that, and we're very active locally, but there was also an opportunity again to engage. We do a lot of our work in Greater Manchester. 99% of our work's in Greater Manchester, but actually we're a club that has a global community as a family. So we decided that we would go to our supporters clubs around the world, which there are 247, and we wanted to, we would, as is every other football foundation, we're very much youth orientated, child orientated, and if we had the resource, we'd look after every child in the whole entire world if we could. We haven't. So what we did was we decided to go to our supporters clubs. As I say, there's 247, and we gave them the opportunity of engaging with the local youth charity, children's charity in their area, and we said we'd give them £500, but if they fundraise towards it, we'd match it to £1,000. And shockingly, 217 came back. So around the world, 217 supporters clubs came back, and it was just amazing what they did with a little bit of money, really. And so through our supporters clubs, and the idea now for sustainability is those supporters clubs adopt those local children's charities. So as a foundation, we've been a catalyst for improving the well-being and health and opportunity for kids all around the world. So, that's probably one of the standout programs that we did during pandemic. But we've sort of, well, straight away we thought we'd work. COVID was 2019 to 2024. That's what we're working on. So we're not out of it. We still need to work very closely with partners and and people around the table. Today the sharing of ideas is fantastic.
Well, John, just building on that, how do you see community engagement? How has it changed over the last, let's say, number of years? How do you think community engagement has changed?
I think as an industry, as a sector, I think football clubs, sports clubs have got better. Yeah. As Jamie said, I think it was Jamie, we've lost our arrogance, and we go in there and we become part of a team that helps deliver. Probably our greatest virtue is engagement of, but we don't always have the expertise to do stuff, so we have to learn and listen with those people. And, you know, I think most of us work in the areas of highest social deprivation. And it's changed because it's worse and there's a lot more of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And our role is even more important. It's more important now than it's ever been.
Great insight. And Sarah, same question to you. How do you think community engagement has changed over the last number of years?
I think from a football club standing, I think, you know, and John's probably better to answer this because he's been around much longer than I have. I've only been head of community for 17 months, but from what I've studied and what I've seen over the years, it was a bit like a CSR box in some, you know, the lack of understanding, or we need to do something, but I'm not quite sure, but we'll do it. And I think now the power of the badge, and like everything that you've obviously heard this morning, the absolutely magnificent impact you can make has really made everyone, I think, in football and the community understand that actually there's a real role for us. And these football foundations, they are massive businesses, they're separate entities. Obviously, Burnley FC in the community is a charity, a registered charity, probably very similar to a lot of football foundations up and down the country. In its heyday, it's a £4.5 million turnover. We probably do about 50 projects. We have 3 facilities that we own. So it is remarkable. And I think club owners, the Premier League, obviously the Premier League now have a charitable fund, which I think has come into fruition over the last 5, 6, 7 years, really understand the full role and impact it can have in communities. And like John said, it isn't going away. There is high deprivation. It's got worse with the pandemic. And I think the repercussions of that will be to be seen for a couple of years. But I think it's wonderful, really wonderful. And why today is good, just to, because a lot of people don't know what we do. And I think we probably need to sell that a little bit more, which is a shame because, you know, the football players, they're all real advocates of it. Me, the captain, rings me regularly, what can we do? What can we do? It's not me nagging them. So there's a real desire from everyone around the club to do stuff. But I think people need to fully understand what we do.
Absolutely. And that's one reason, you know, we've got this conference, and myself and FC Business, we've got a monthly column, and it's all free. We're not getting, you know, so we want stories that we can tell in this column. So please contact us so that we can tell the story. Well, Jamie, the same question then to you. How do you think community engagement has changed over the last number of years?
I mean, I think more of what Sarah and John have said, to be fair, I think that they've summed it up nicely. I think John mentioned earlier, we've got better as foundations. You know, I think there probably was a little bit in the past where we'd maybe put on a session or a program, but there was there's no sustainability to it. You know, it was a one-off, or it was you know, it looked good, you know, from a CSR point of view. But I think what we've all developed and what we've all got a lot better at is making sure that we're making a long-lasting impact, you know, and we're working with people for longer. You know, and I think one of the things that I think started to worry us a little bit was our big number of people that we work with every year was starting to drop. So, you know, when you're looking back at your yearbooks and you're going, is there a problem here? Well, no, actually, we're working with less people, but we're making more of an impact. And I think that's the important bit. You know, it's again, it's that thing of less is more, and making sure that we're making an impact.
Yeah, makes sense. And Tom, from your side?
Yeah, I think the engagement piece, from our angle, we're very much focused around engagement and empowerment are very, very closely linked together. A lot of the individuals we work with and support, you know, they have a want to improve their lifestyles. You know, they recognise that there's a pathway that they need to undertake, and you know, and that's not a pathway that will be sort of like taken overnight. It's a long-term strategy, a long-term plan. But that engagement piece is really, really closely linked with empowerment. So that universal hook of football is really, really important. But once we've got that engagement and we've got that, you know, the attention of the audience, the target audience, for us, it's very much about sustaining that engagement level, because, you know, as everyone else has alluded to earlier, you know, the sector's very much been focused on sort of short-term solutions. So it's a case of, oh, there's a problem. Well, we've got a 6-week plaster. We'll stick it over. Everything looks great. Some nice photos, and everything's sort of plain sailing. But, you know, as the pandemic's taken hold, the entrenched inequalities have become far, far more significant and even greater entrenched. So for us, it's around that empowerment piece around long-term engagement and long-term sustaining of outcomes. And if that engagement and empowerment piece isn't linked together, it becomes a very much a short-term solution, and you end up at sort of square one again and again and again. So I think as a sector, we're far greater at recognising that long-term vision piece, which is going to be applauded, because, you know, it's often, you know, culture change can be difficult, you know, when it's been sort of status quo for so long, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I have 2 more broad questions and then we're done. We're coming to the end. But Jamie, coming to you, you put up some really nice sort of comment or a table about the funding streams. Are you seeing that funding streams from a certain area are becoming more open? So, for example, education, for example, health. Is there other funding streams for community-based programs or are becoming more accessible for foundation type activity?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably due to the pandemic, obviously there's a lot more money in health at the minute, so we've managed to access quite a bit of funding to tackle health inequalities in the area. But one of the interesting things is that we're actually working in partnership with the NHS, rather than, I think in the past we've maybe been commissioned by the NHS to deliver some work, whereas now they've come to us and sort of said, right, here's the problem. How do we work together to make the impact here? So I suppose the change for me very much is around the NHS, recognising what we're good at. Like I said earlier, it's maybe that first engagement. It's getting, you know, getting people through the door that maybe wouldn't go to the GP or wouldn't seek help normally, but they'll come to the local football club's charity. So yeah, I think that piece of work around health, there's obviously a lot more money in that area at the minute.
Yeah, and John, same question to you. Are you seeing pockets of money in certain areas because of the pandemic, or no? Is it the same funding pots?
People think when you work at Manchester Foundation, it's easy. We hardly get any external funding at all.
Yeah.
So when we apply for funding to different funding pots, I think it's because we're possibly Manchester United that we don't get. I have asked the question: is it because we're Manchester United, or is it that we're absolutely rubbish at writing bids? So we've tried quite a number of bid writers to. So we've gone around that cycle, and you know, one of the guys who just joined us on our trading board is a guy called Kevin Carhill, who was CEO of Comic Relief and Sport Relief. And he made it very clear that Manchester United, even when you've applied to it, it's very difficult for you to get funds. So we're more of a social enterprise, I suppose, which again is probably like most of us. Although we go under the charity banner, you know, what we've got, we offer as services, so that raises its own funds. And then we do our own fundraising, really. But I do think, you know, and again, commercially, we find it very hard to relate to local companies because brand association with the club Manchester United comes at a cost. So, you know, we can only really work commercially with our own partners. I do think that, and again, you know, I do think there is a change there in the respect that companies are becoming more purpose-led in the initiatives they get involved in. So I am hoping that, you know, we will work a lot closer with some of our club partners, which will increase some of the funding and some of the activity we can do.
Yeah, and Sara, are you seeing that as well? Maybe some of your club partners getting more involved in the work you're doing, or are you seeing different other funding pots that you're now tapping into that you didn't do before?
Well, it's interesting. We don't have the Man United problem at Burnley, but we do still are perceived as a Premier League club. So
Yeah.
why would we need funding? That's something, an education piece we find when we go. I think that, and again, this is the understanding. We are a separate company. We need to, like John, it's a charity, it's a non-profit, however you want to describe that. So we do need funding. We do need a surplus. We do need operating costs covered. Answer to your question, I would say the pandemic, and I'm a fresh pair of eyes, obviously, has helped collaboration in Burnley. So one of the things that came out of it was Burnley Together. So that was probably about 8 to 10 key partners in the town, including the council, as well as education providers, universities, us, leisure facilities, etc. And we've just put some bids in, certainly around the regeneration and, like I said, unemployment, getting people back on their feet after the pandemic. And we've won that bid, which has been great. And I don't think pre-pandemic that would have happened. We were all happily coexisting and going for different pots, but this has brought us together. So we've got another steering group next week. We're hosting it here. I'm keen to keep that going. I think there's an appetite that we can see that we're powerful if we collaborate, and everyone understands their role and what we can do as a bigger organisation together, rather than just one club trying to do everything, tackle everything. Because you can't help the world. You can't do it all on your own. But there's a trust element with partners and external partners, and I think that's really come to the fore. So that's great to see.
Yeah, and I think that's a real powerful message, bringing people together and then, common purposes. So fantastic. And Tom, same question to you from a funding point of view. Are you seeing different other areas of funding opportunities in your, let's say, young life as an organisation?
Yes, so it's really echoing the sort of the messaging of other partners there and other organisations around that collaborative piece. So when the pandemic took hold in Salford, the Spirit of Salford network was created, and it was basically a COVID response network in terms of its early life. But as that network's progressing, it's now becoming a sort of a network for collaboration, for tendering opportunities, but also for mapping and bringing people together to share expertise, knowledge, skill set and resources. So that collaborative approach is really, really strong and really, really beneficial. And there's lots of fantastic initiatives being developed on the back of that, where partners who have specialists can come together and add value. I think in terms of that mobilisation of the business community in particular, we have quite a strong working relationship with CAMS, with the Mental Health Trust in Greater Manchester, and we identified sort of a prevailing inequality that was only going to become more entrenched, unfortunately, as data sets become more available around mental well-being. There's some stats around male suicide rates in Greater Manchester. One stat that stuck to my mind in particular was sort of every 30 hours a male commits suicide in Greater Manchester. And we felt as a charity, given our footprint and our specialism, we were best placed to hopefully work with partners to help alleviate that inequality. So we've really mobilised the business community through a fundraising campaign called Our Goal, where to date we've raised just short of £50,000. That's enabled us to hopefully employ a team of counsellors who would deliver a free outreach service. So I think the business community, and what we found is, in terms of the business community that have mobilised, there have been small to medium-sized enterprises that have really mobilised within this movement. And it's really enabled us to bring a collective movement with a shared vision together, that hopefully from sort of mid to late September, we can deliver that service that effectively is ring-fenced in terms of unrestricted funding as well, and we can deliver that to achieve the services outcomes. So the business community in particular, I think have been very responsive to the need of the community, and it's enabled us to really be creative in the way we deliver our services moving forwards.
Love it. Brilliant. Love that idea with that business community as well. Okay, so last question, and I'll start with John. In a few words, what does the future hold for your foundation and your programs, etc., etc.?
We've never been needed more. We need to all the things that have been said today, really. We need to be agile, we need to be innovative, we need to be creative, we need to listen. We need to listen to the people who we're giving our services to, because if you're not careful, you can give them what you think they want rather than what they need. And we need to be more collaborative, and we need to be part of a bigger picture.
Love that. Brilliant. Jamie?
What John said.
I back that. Yeah, brilliant. I love it. No, and inspirational. From your point of view, Jamie, is, you know, what does a future hold for you? Is it less programs but higher quality? Is it more programs? Is it new areas?
I think, I mean, there's two key areas really for us. I think one is continuing that theme of less is more, and just making sure that everything is making an impact. And you know, if we're running programs for the sake of running them just because we've always done it, but it's not really making an impact, then I think we need to seriously look at those programs and make some tough decisions. And then obviously the other bit for us is, you know, we've got that commercial angle to the business as well with the Beacon of Light, and that has been impacted by the pandemic because we've not been able to fully open the doors for 18 months or so. So we do need to prioritise making sure that side of the business is operating at full capacity as quickly as possible. But you know, from a foundation point of view, more less is more, and making sure that we're making an impact in the communities.
Love it. Great. Tom?
Yeah, I feel like community engagement piece, really, really important. You know, listening, understanding, and developing interventions based around need. But also, I think there's a really important focus on vision. So what does the vision of every intervention look like? And a quality over quantity approach. So working with potentially less people for longer, but creating a more sustained outcome is very much based around, and obviously collaborating. You know, as much as we have that unbelievable hook of football, there's plenty of specialist organisations who add significant value. So that collaboration piece has got to be at the forefront of everything that the sector delivers moving forwards.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And Sara, same question to you. What does the future hold for your foundation, for the work that you do in the future?
I think for us, it's depth rather than breadth. And it's bode as well through what's been heightened crisis management for the last 15 months. And obviously I've just touched on our departments, but we've been through a restructure. We've got thematic domains departments now, depth rather than breadth, and hand on heart, really do it as much as we possibly can in the projects that we do. And longevity, to make sure that when we do a project, we're here not just for 10 weeks, 6 months, it's here for 2-3 years, because that's where you're going to make the most change, transformation, impact. And that's where, you know, we can really make a difference to the community. And with John, I think the post-pandemic world is going to be quite interesting to navigate. What people want, what they need, because we've all been so remote and we've been on Zoom all the time. It's really sort of trying to finger on the pulse about where we're at and what we're doing. The fans obviously back now in the stadium. That might be something that foundations might look to do and find out what the needs are. We have got facilities like Jamie. We have the leisure box in Briarfield, which again is a highly deprived area. Yet that's been on its own journey. I'm sure Jamie can to relate to that. So that's got a commercial arm, but obviously it's there for the charity and the community and all our projects as well. So that's keeping us busy because obviously all the restrictions are going. But yeah, I think that's our mission. That's our business plan. Fully recover, fully operate again. Make sure there's no more lockdowns looming this Christmas. Do I dare say it? And then think about new projects coming into 2022.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, look, that brings, I mean, what a great way to end the session by finding out what the future holds. So we've looked at what everybody is doing and discuss that and what the future now holds. And we can see the inspirational stories, the programs. And what we wanted to do in this is to share those ideas so that other people can be either inspired or, more importantly, do something similar through the power of football. I want to thank all of our speakers, Sam, Jamie, Andy, John, Sarah, Tom, for all giving their time. They give up their time to do this, to share their learning. And I would just say a big thank you for doing that.